recording, and it's great to start the show once again. Portia, how are you?
I'm all right, Rudy, and how are you?
Excellent, excellent. The sun is shining here in London as usual, and another program KZN going global, and we've got a great guest today. We've got Neo from TIA Tier 360. Neo, great for you to join us all. And first of all,
Thanks,
tell us a
Rudy.
bit about yourself and your organization.
Thanks, Rudy. Thank you once again. As I said, I'm the communications head for DR360, which stands for Tourism Investment Africa 360. And that's essentially to get everybody to know about DR360 and what we do. DR360 is a specialist platform that concerns itself with driving investment into Africa's tourism industry. It's big, it's vast, it is complex. But DR360 believes that this is an agenda that has to be followed through with, and that is what our work is about, driving investment into Africa's tourism industry.
Okay, thanks for that. So, of course, throughout the pandemic, tourism has suffered greatly, and of course, some investors may be running away. So, why do you think there should be increased investment in tourism in itself?
Yes, yes, Rudy. The pandemic has not been kind in many respects, and this devastation has been felt acutely in the tourism sector, and it continues to be felt in tourism, as much as players all over the world are trying to change and trying to adapt and so forth. We are far from where tourism was pre-pandemic, and we're certainly far from where tourism was projected to be had the pandemic not happened. And that is where I would like to take off from, that the proposition for tourism as an industry and a sector that could impact positively for people, for communities, for countries, for economies is still there. Pre-pandemic, projections were upward in many parts of the world, particularly in the developing parts of the world, in Asia, in Africa, in South America. We were all looking upwards. You know, the WTO was projecting considerable growth. And with that growth means more jobs, better business for people in there, for the business players, the business owners, increased economic activity for countries and so forth, which means then that for investors, there are very real returns that investors could accrue and get. Now, although we have had the pandemic, the fundamentals that was driving those projections previously are still there. And in fact, we've all been locked down. There's this pent-up demand. It has made us realize the importance of tourism even more, whereas some may have taken it for granted. Now we cannot take tourism for granted anymore. We all realize that we actually want to be out there.
Excellent. So the bulk of the investment tends to go to large companies. So how can the smaller businesses, SMEs, attract investment?
Indeed. And this is where organizations such as ours come in to say we need to rethink how we do things, and let's rethink, in fact, how we come back after the pandemic. By all means, big business is very important. States are very important. I was reading earlier on today about the Skywalk development in the Mpumalanga province here in South Africa, which is a fantastic news, about how much will be invested into this project. It's a big mega project, over 100 million. The owners are looking at and so forth. And obviously, there are massive investment propositions. But within that, that is only one part. Tourism is made up of so many different parts. Some are massive, some are huge, some are small. And those small ones are just as important in terms of the entire ecosystem. And as part of that agenda to look at driving investment, we actually have to look more closely at the smaller businesses, which is where more people can be involved. There are fewer barriers to entry, we hope. However, there is still the need for quality, still the need for knowledge, still the need for information, still the need for business planning and for making these businesses viable and resilient. And we think that in talking about investment into tourism, even the small players must think like the big players, must think like the big chains, the big companies, even if the scales might be less in terms of the resilience and the strength and the viabilities of those businesses. Everybody needs to think like that. And if a player can't do it, then who are the other players that can help a small business owner do that? What can governments do? What can the other organizations do? What can the big companies do? The big players? How could they assist the smaller players in that respect?
Yeah, so you're really talking about the sector development and the type of business support activities that would be available. So having said that then, Neo,
absolutely,
how can the local communities and neighborhoods themselves then get more involved?
So one is, I think at the outset is organization, organizing themselves. I think communities should organize themselves. It's not always easy, but it's important. As businesses, whereas sometimes businesses might think of themselves as competitors in the local area. In fact, often it's found that businesses complement one another, and organizing themselves as businesses, organizing themselves with the broader community in the area is perhaps the first step. To share information, share what needs to be done, and so forth. By organizing then is how these organizations can link to other entities. How do these organizations, these community organizations, these business organizations, these local business chambers, how do they then link with governments? How do they link with specialist organizations? How do they link with academic institutions within that area? How do they begin then to collaborate with everybody else to try and put through the type of programs and the plans that could be done to build the sector in the local area? From there then, areas could think of what could they offer as communities to visitors. If we are Umlazi, for example, what is it that we could offer visitors? Obviously, because we are Umlazi, we are different from another area. Why should people be coming here? How could we put that out there? How have we done in the past? What opportunities do we have going forward? And how do we work together to do that? How do we also bring in the rest of the community so that everybody actually is part of the value that is being built in the local community? And how does that link up with, say, perhaps the broader city, which would be Durban, and the broader destination, the province and South Africa.
Okay, yeah, so that sounds like quite a, or potentially quite a comprehensive program of support that's required in terms of capacity building, very much in that the local area, the neighborhoods.
Correct, absolutely. And it's important, you know, sometimes businesses on their own or businesses within these organizations find that they cannot access certain programs, or you find that the program exists, but they cannot find the link to the intended recipients.
Yeah.
And this is then where we're hoping in our work as DR360 to be that connector, that matchmaker. So at the very heart of DR360 is to say, if you're a business on the one end and you want to attract investment, we will help link you to those potential investors. And for those investors out there, the sell to them is that tourism is where you can actually get good returns. And there are good ideas happening. There are people who might not know where you are, but there are businesses out there who have good ideas going. Some they are in existence already, some are new, and we will connect you with those. And if more work needs to be done to facilitate this transaction, DIA is ready to provide those services to help in facilitating the businesses, to make them investment ready, to make them bankable, and so forth.
Yeah, and I understand exactly what you're saying, because on the one hand, you're able to assist with the access at both ends, but also you facilitate the pathways and that building of relationships, and of course understanding as well, because there will be cultural issues in terms of ways of working and doing things. So cultural understanding is so important between the various entities. So that's excellent, and of course all that contributes to the economic development of the area as well, of the local area.
100%.
Yeah.
And over and above some of that cultural understanding, you know, in some of the conversations we've had with some of the players, I'll give you a brief example, you know, when we, you know, some of the banks that we talk with and who've been part of our programs, you know, they have a particular way that they expect projects to come through to them. They have certain needs and criteria and so forth. But what the pandemic has shown to all of us is there not an opportunity to actually rethink how, even as the banks, we do work, how we expect businesses to talk to us, while some of the fundamental questions and concerns that investors would want, which is where the banks would also be, in terms of what businesses are saying, are not going to go away. You know, some of those fundamentals are not going to go away. But can we perhaps think longer term? Can we think differently? Can we rethink how these businesses are constituted? Can we rethink some of the ways we have been doing lending, for example? Can we rethink how we have been expecting businesses to come through? And also on the business side, you know, what can we do to make ourselves more attractive to the banks, for example?
Absolutely, and again, your focus there very much again is around what we would call here business support and the access to finance and the capacity building of the entrepreneurs. So they may have the ideas, but like you say, it's some of the formalities. So you do need that intermediary body that can then, you know, allow all sides to understand each other, because at the end of the day, the bank does need the local economy to thrive, and of course entrepreneurs need access to finance and support. So yeah, that's excellent. So what programs do you have, and how can businesses in the local communities take advantage of this? So you've given us an overview. Is there any specific programs for local businesses, and what sort of capacity building programs are available to them?
Yes, so we currently have a program, the Business Turnaround Program, which is open to businesses in KwaZulu-Natal. So naturally, businesses in Umlazi, in Durban, qualify for this. And this is born out of the realization that businesses have been negatively impacted. Businesses are in trouble, business owners, they have very real problems and issues. And sometimes, an outside eye could see certain things that you, who is in the storm, cannot see those things. And this is where this program then, or the invitation to businesses out there is, come forward, put your issues on the table, and then through this program, there are some experts who could help you look at how your business could be turned around. We're running it together with Productivity SA. They have the experts, they've thought it through, they've got it resourced, and we are creating that linkage then. And this is where businesses could come forward into a resourced program, which could help them at this point look at how to turn around their current businesses and hopefully get themselves ready for when things do pick up, things take a steeper upward curve, and they can grow back to where they were and grow even further beyond that.
So is there any cost to the local businesses for this program?
So to the it's resourced, it's funded.
Okay.
So there wouldn't be any costs for the main program for the business owner. So and it's, all of the protocols are in place in terms of confidentialities and so forth. So for the business owner, there aren't any costs for the main part of the program. However, if any other services become required that are identified from that, there might be some costs, but it shouldn't deter anyone from coming in, because there are many ways to skin these cats. There are many ways to find solutions for other things that might come up along the way.
Okay, so would this be open to those thinking about a business, those who've just started a business, and those who are an established business? So what's the kind of criteria?
So this would be more for existing businesses that do have a track record. And this is essentially to ensure that the businesses that we do have are saved. There's the saying that a bird in hand is better than two in the bush. So the current businesses, they are already employing people. There's already expertise. So it's important that those businesses get saved. Now, for any of the new businesses, somebody has a new idea. That is part of DIA's classical mandate and agenda. So there's also room for that. Together with the eThekwini municipality, we're developing a pipeline. So businesses are still invited to submit, to come forward for investment. So they need to put an investment demand in place to think of how they would approach an investor. So there needs to be business plans. They need to show that their proposition is bankable. And this, together with the eThekwini municipality through their agency Invest Durban, this will be put out on various platforms to potential investors. So even those who have something new that they're thinking of, by all means, they're invited to bring it forth. We have a website, www.tia360 are the numbers, .africa, where there are 2 points of entry. So on a general new business that you might have, there's a click-through that you can go through, or for the business turnaround program, there's another click-through for that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And that's been really informative today, and great that you came onto our platform. And I look forward to you joining us on some of the future knowledge sharing symposiums that we will be hosting. So I'm now going to hand back to the studio to Portia.
Thank you.
Over to you.
Thank you so much. Neil and Rudy, my word, like I've learned so much, and especially as an what do you call this, an entrepreneur myself, and a person who is in the tourism industry. So learning that, well, tourism investment in Africa has plans of actually reigniting the sector actually makes us feel a little bit more comfortable. So in regards to the programs that you are currently running, like the business turnaround program, that's actually quite interesting because well, some people haven't heard about it. So that's something to actually look forward to. So is it more of a training session, or is it like where you meet one-on-one with the person that will be actually guiding you as to how to improve your business?
So it is quite one-on-one because each business has unique issues. There are specialists who be assigned to the business that applies for this, and look at that business's particular issues and try and find a solution for that business. If it's training, I think it's more business support, because the applicants would be businesses that are already running. These are business people that do have track records. It just so happens that business has had these problems, the pandemic, what other issues are happening right now. But that's where it sits. So it's more for people that are running business, and it's support.
Okay, that sounds amazing. And you also spoke about the 100 mil, what do you call this, 100 million investments that you guys currently have. So you did speak of how you guys just don't want to prioritize the big businesses only, so the small businesses can also benefit from it. But then now, as let's say I'm in the rural areas, for example, and well, with the United Nations, what do you call this, last year's theme was rural and township tourism. So as a person coming from there, not having that much of a business experience, will that still apply to me? So will then the step be go for the, what do you call this, the business turnaround program and then apply?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so if I could just correct something, the 100 million rand investment, that project, it's not ours. It's by, in fact, it's Motlhala Tourism Group, one of South Africa's tourism groups, and they have announced a major project in Mpumalanga at God's Window. So I was just stating it as an example of the type of activity that TIA360 is promoting. All of these different activities everywhere are a part of it. So on the one hand, we have the very big things that the Motlhala groups of this world are doing. But on the other hand, we might have somebody who has a little farm or is setting up a small thing in their village. That person is just as important. Very, very important. So for the business turnaround, that program is for those businesses that have been in existence. They have been in existence. They ran into problems because of COVID, or in the last 2 years, particular problems have come up, and they need assistance. They need somebody else another set of eyes, another expert to perhaps help them with the problem. And that's what the turnaround is there for.
Awesome. All right, lovely. Okay, I hope everybody actually has a clearer picture now of what is happening. I love money. I just heard 100 million. I was like, yeah, I'm in. You know what I mean?
Yes,
And
yes, good. Good, you love money. We should all love money.
Yeah, and Rudy, is there anything else that you'd like to add on today?
Yeah, I think, you know, it'd be nice to just get a sense probably of the type of support that will be available to those people who've got new ideas, and maybe those, again, coming through the pandemic would like to set up in business, but they need the skills, because we talk about local people, local skills, local jobs, local opportunities. So I'm just wondering, Nia, is there any program that you know of that kind of will reach out? And of course, we're talking about young people as well. So we say startups with, you know, they can be in their 20s, you know, still looking to really get themselves on life's ladder, you know, and they've got ambitions.
Yes. So absolutely, Rudy. And I'm so happy that you asked that question. So typically what we have in the entrepreneurial space, if I could place it there, is you have a range of service providers. Some would provide, say, incubation, some mentorship, a different range of solutions at different levels for where an entrepreneur or a business may find themselves. So one business might not need incubation, might not need mentorship. They might just need the funding. You know, they know everything, they know how to do this, they've got the experience, they just need an investor. They might need loans, they might need a range of investors, and they want to put themselves out there. On the other hand, there might be another entrepreneur who has a good idea going, a very good idea. In fact, an innovative idea that needs different types of backing. So before we even get to the funding, it might need, in fact, the business development idea might need some work. And this is where DR360 will bring in that resource to say, we are aware that, for example, there's this entity, it's a government entity, or there is that bank, they have this program, to bring them in and match them with the business person that here are two people. Your journey begins here, and let's start over here. And so it grows, where perhaps in 2 years, that same business needs a different solution now, or needs a different intervention now. And as part of DIA within that, they would have then brought in a different player to invest in that business, whether it's in skills development, whether it's in further management training, whatever it might be, and including funding, because funding isn't the only thing, and funding then, and so forth, such that after 3-5 years, this business that did not exist 5 years ago is now very different and is employing X number of people, a win-win for everybody. Government wants to see employment. The community wants to see employment. The banks want to see employment. Other businesses want to see that business growing and thriving, and employment.
So in terms of skills for the sector of tourism, could you say a bit about the kind of provision that there is for skills development as part of the overall sector development? Again, particularly for local communities and neighbourhoods, you know, what are the type of opportunities? Where does education come in as part of this as well?
Yeah, thank you also for that one. Skills are extremely important because tourism by its nature is very human intensive. It's about people. It is people working with other people. And as much as there are some very hard skills, there are some very soft skills too, that could make or break businesses. As part of the DIA construct, and on that agenda is that a lot has to be invested into human capital, into education, into skills development, and so forth. While there might not be a specific program right now, at our recent investment symposium, we had speakers from different perspectives, such as Tsogosan, which is one of the big companies in South Africa, who have direct knowledge of what is required in the hospitality sector. Okay. We also had people in the academic space who are service providers or educators in that space, and having to bring those together and to also look at what is required going forward in the new type of picture or tourism setup that we would like to rebuild. What skills will be required? What technological skills will be required? What technology is coming up? In terms of the sustainability space, how do we rethink? How do we use? How do we need to rethink? How do we need to retrain ourselves? All of us, even some of those who may have been in the sector for a long time. With the current new needs, how do we need to reskill? And all of that is a part of it.
Okay, yeah, that's really important. So the symposium then was very much about the sector and all the different parts and how they actually fit together.
Correct.
The knowledge sharing. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. It spoke about, because tourism is so broad, we spoke about some of them. It was by no means exhaustive. Right, okay. So there were conversations about, a few areas, finance and tourism, technology and tourism, education and tourism, eventing in tourism. How do places create events that will bring people in? How do we, what do we need to do? How do we showcase our own culture and so forth? So all of those areas, but if you look at it, even within one area, you spoke about skills development and education. We could talk for the whole year just on education. Yeah. Similarly, we could talk for the whole year just on eventing and culture and experiences and heritage. It's so deep, it's so rich. And that just goes to show that at one level, the dialogue, like what we are doing right now, is important, but also where everybody else finds themselves, it's important to continue that dialogue and to continue moving these things forward.
Yeah, and of course, and we touched on it earlier on, there's another important element to this is the whole international market and, and how you outreach the different cultures and what that means in terms of cultural understanding. We have, we're here in the UK, Beryl's is in Germany. So I just wondered what your thoughts are about that whole international market and being able to attract people from around the world. Yeah.
I think it's very important. It's important for human beings. Human beings have always been interested in other human beings, in other cultures. And it's important when people share themselves, when they open up their homes, open up their places, and allow visitors into, certain aspects about themselves. This is who we are. This is how we live. This is how we eat. This is how we celebrate. This is how we do things. And a lot of people in the tourism space are finding that there's a massive growth in those authentic experiences that people want. People want to go to different places to be with the people of this place, instead of a generalized average version of what the whole world is. In fact, people celebrate that diversity that all the different people in their communities, in their homes, and the localities bring. And because the international community is all interested in that, it's important for the whole sector. You know, we have Europeans coming to Africa, we have Africans going to Europe, we have people going to Asia, Asia to South America, and all over the place. It's important for the whole world. And it's important then for communities to actually be proud of who they are, to learn what makes themselves special, and to showcase themselves. So when we are in Durban, what are we showcasing? When we are in Ulundi, what are we showcasing? You know, in the different places where we are, what are we putting on for ourselves and for the visitors who will come to us?
Yeah, and so in your mind, Neo, sort of finally, how do you see the prospects of collaboration between different countries now? Because obviously all countries are in their at different places as it relates to tourism and what they've been involved in, but there's shared learning is still important. So I'd be interested to get your thoughts on that finally.
Absolutely. And the pandemic has shown us that we actually need one another even more. As much as borders were closed and everybody retreated into themselves, it's not sustainable. The world was never created like that. We need one another much, much more. We must reach out to one another. We must find ways to work with one another, even in future pandemics. How do we make sure that we actually don't close ourselves from one another? You know, how do we make sure that what can we learn from these experiences to make us stronger in terms of working with one another? And the only way to do that is to actually talk to one another, to reach out to one another, to share. And platforms such as this, these are extremely important. And how we extend those linkages, you know, one introduces one to another, the next introduces one to another, and actually enrich those collaborations. And I mean, we've been talking about investment, and it's almost as if it's only about the money. It isn't. It's about a lot more. The returns are about much, much more than just the money. The money is a big part of it, and it's a great one, but it's peace, it's friendships, it's cultural exchange, it's sharing of knowledge, it's just overall development for humanity throughout the world.
And on that very positive note, thank you very much. And
thank you.
Look forward to seeing you all again in the future.
Amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rudy. Thank you, Portia. A big thank you, and may you keep up the good work of keeping those connections alive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye all.
Absolutely, and without Rudy, the collaboration between South Africa and London wouldn't happen.
Thank you.
And funny enough, this morning I was actually listening to one of the radio stations, and they were talking about Formula One coming back to South Africa as one of the wishes that the voters would like to happen. And funny enough, you at the symposium with the Tourism Investment Africa, you guys actually spoke about that. So we do actually look forward to having that. And Lewis Hamilton won his 100th race yesterday. That was quite amazing. And really, we hope to see you when the Formula One does actually happen, or even earlier, before anything actually happens. So once again, guys, thank you so much for actually having this conversation with us and with our listeners. And I hope everybody has actually absorbed quite a lot. And Neo, on your website, what do you call this? www.tia360.africa. I hope a lot of people will be now logging on, new businesses, existing businesses, just so they can take advantage of the opportunities that you guys are offering. So once again, thank you so much. And that is the show for today. And balaleli sibonge kakhulu ukuthi nihlalile-ke nathi namhlanje and you guys enjoyed the show. And njengoba nizwile-ke ukuthi